Hello everyone, and welcome to the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Here with your hosts, Jacob Smedley,
Sam Betts,
Justin Rehan,
Peter Amarante,
and Nathan Romanot.
The topics today: the MLB season is about a month and a half through. Sam will give us a breakdown on the team's surprising, disappointing, and a lot more. The NFL draft has come and gone. Justin and the crew will have that covered, and some NBA and NHL playoffs. Now, here's Sam Betts. Yes, everyone, he is back. Sam, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I know I was absent our last episode, but I'm here and I'm ready to talk about baseball. The MLB's been in full swing for the past month here or so. We've seen some really great action. We've had some weird occurrences happen, with fantasy football, like leagues and stuff like that. Jake knows what I'm talking about if he gets that reference. But the MLB's here, and I'm ready to talk about it. I kind of want to go over some MLB standings. I want to talk about the AL East. We're going to start with them first. We have the Yankees on top. The infamous Yankees, who have been doing really well. They have won 33 games and only lost 14. They are at the top of their division. You have the Tampa Bay Rays, a former World Series contender back in the 2020 season, taking up second place, 27-19, 5.5 games back. I do like this Tampa Bay Rays team. I think with Wander Franco especially, be a young star, very solid pitching rotation. I'd like to see what they can do if they could take maybe overthrow the Yankees at the top spot. This is very early in the season. Anything can happen. The Toronto Blue Jays are up next. They're 25-20. A little disappointing from the Blue Jays. I thought they were doing a lot better. They have Kevin Gausman, though, who's been phenomenal. I think his walk ratio was very low. I think
19 Ks per nine, it's unheard of.
I know. It's very otherworldly, if I would say. He had the highest one. I think the next one I saw was like 8 Ks per nine or something like that average, which was, that's still pretty good, but not even, Kevin Gausman is in his own realm there. Also have Hyun-Jin Ryu, Jose Barrios. So you have a pretty solid rotation there. You also have a great lineup with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez. I could keep going on there, but they have a really solid lineup, which is why I'm surprised they're 25-20 only.
I think their offense has been struggling, though, and I think a lot of their peripheral stats have them in the middle of the pack. They've struggled to score runs so far, but like you said, like you mentioned those names, those are all professional hitters. They're going to get it together. They've pitched their way in some games, but their offense, I think, has let them down, but I think they're going to be right there in the thick of things.
Hopefully they can even get like a wild card spot as well. I know that's very possible for this team. Now we go to the gutter a little bit for the AL East. We have the Boston Red Sox at 22-24, 10.5 games back. You have Xander Bogaerts, you have Rafael Devers, but the pitching rotation has struggled. But the pitching has struggled a lot for this team. And then we go to the Orioles at 19-28, 14 games back.
Hey, Adley's up now.
Adley is up now, and that might be a game changer for a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna be enough to completely turn this team around. I think they're gonna finish in the gutter again, like they did last season. It's been a struggle for them. They're in a rebuilding phase, but they have a nice, good set of prospects. Adley Rutschman, you just mentioned. Kyle Bradish, I believe his name is. He's a top pitching prospect. Grayson Rodriguez has been dominating in AAA right now for the Norfolk Tides. They have a really good prospect base, and I think in the next couple of years we'll see this team turn around very soon. We can move on to the AL Central. Now this is a very interesting one. We have the Minnesota Twins up with 28-14. Obviously adding guys like Carlos Correa, trading for Gary Sanchez and Giovanni Urshela has definitely helped this team with their offense. Byron Buxton's been hitting a lot of home runs, but at that 202 average, it's going to be interesting. He's definitely a really good defensive player, been making a lot of diving catches recently. And also a couple other smaller guys, Luis Arias and Nick Gordon, who was a former number one overall pick, or first round pick, excuse me, coming up and playing pretty well. Also, like I said, pretty good pitching. Not too many big names for them, and they're having a couple injuries right now, which is kind of concerning. I know Joe Ryan was injured. A couple other starters were injured were key parts of their rotation, but hopefully that doesn't completely cause them to have a downfall, and hopefully they can keep this lead, keep the bats rolling.
Yeah, and I think one player you didn't mention on the pitching side, Johan Duran,
Yes,
relief pitcher,
he is
nasty out of the pen.
gas.
Yeah, was it like
gas.
a high 90s slider out of the pen, throws like 102, 101. He's nasty. I think, this Twins team, surprising. I think a lot of people, when you, of course, can go down the list with the White Sox, Guardians, Tigers, and Royals, at least in terms of, Tigers, Royals, Guardians, at least kind of in that pack. But the White Sox, many people would think they would be better, but the Twins, with their offseason moves, acquisitions, have really proved to be a fighting force at the top.
Yeah, I know, Jake, and the Chicago White Sox are always that team that everyone thinks is going to be so great, and we've seen it time and time again. And for the past couple of years, I thought they're really going to be great. I still think they have a really good team, but it's now just about proving that. They're 22 and 22, 4.5 games back only. That's not a big deficit, especially this early. It could be very easy for them to take it over, but it's just about them living up to the hype, essentially. Everyone else, the Cleveland Guardians at 19 and 23, 6.5 games back. The Detroit Tigers 16 and 29, and the Kansas City Royals sharing that same record. I mean, other than that, the gutter has it's hitting low again. I don't know if I don't really foresee the Tigers or the Kansas City Royals overtaking anyone. I see this being a big fight between the Minnesota Twins and the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, and I think, again, right now you look at both of these teams on paper, I think the White Sox have shown more consistency on offense with guys like Tim Anderson, who's top of the league, at least in shortstop productivity. You've got Jose Abreu, Luis Robert, Yasmani Grandal and company. They're scoring runs. It's been the pitching. You see today they designated Dallas Keuchel for assignment. Still got Vince Velasquez, our old friend, making starts for them. The pitching has been up and down, and they're facing teams like this a few series ago, the red hot Red Sox, at least offensively, where, I mean, it's going. I feel like they're going to get better, but just the pitching has been concerning for the White Sox.
Oh, definitely, for sure. And it's just going to have to see what keeps up, whether their pitching picks up or whether the bats can just keep them going. And we look at the AL West right now. We have the Houston Astros, or the Houston Asterix, as I like to call them. I'm still a little salty about that 2017 World Series, and a lot of people are still, but nonetheless, they're winning right now, 29 and 17. Obviously, Carlos Correa leaving they haven't seen too many difficulties with that. Still have Jose Altuve. Yordan Alvarez has been smashing the ball, former Rookie of the Year. This team, they're the Astros. They're pretty good. I could see them definitely going far in the playoffs. I don't know about World Series yet. But I definitely see them making a deep playoff run.
Yeah, and you look at the division as well. What I guess your thoughts on the Angels? I mean, the Mariners maybe have underperformed at least. I think that they can get it together. They brought in the talent too. Jesse Winker has struggled so far, but the Angels, it looks like they're finally putting it together. Of course, bringing in Syndergaard, bringing in Michael Lorenzen, who's been a fantastic swingman for them, and Ohtani, Trout living up to it, the offense, other guys, Walsh stepping up. What do you think about the Angels right now,
I think
Sam?
the Angels are looking really nice. Like you said, Jared Walsh. Another guy I want to mention is Taylor Ward. A lot of people who didn't really think would perform that well or do that much. He's taken over a spot in left field, formerly a third baseman, he's been crushing the ball. I really like how he's performed. Higher average. He's, like I said, and Jared Walsh too. I think Jared Walsh right now has kind of cooled off just a little bit, but it's not too much for him that he couldn't like come back and make another like stand happen. I mean, Taylor Ward right now is hitting 350 .354 with 9 home runs, 23 RBIs. His OPS is 1.144. He's smashing the ball right now. And I mean, getting those extra base hits and getting on base is definitely helped them as well. Now, the Mariners were another team who I thought were going to do pretty well. I mean, they had J.P. Crawford, like you said, Jesse Winker. Unfortunately, he's underperformed a little bit. I know Tom Murphy at the catching spot has been doing okay recently. Eugenio Suarez has been someone who struggled a little bit, especially when he was with the Reds, and his average-wise hasn't been doing too hot, only batting .211 right now. This team they're kind of a team who needs to pick up Julio Rodriguez, a young, nice
He's
right
the real
fielder.
deal. He is the real deal.
He's been doing really well. Kyle Lewis, former Rookie of the Year, just came back off of injury, is gonna be cemented back in the lineup, I believe. They got guys, Robbie Ray, former Cy Young winner, Logan Gilbert, and George Kirby, two young pitching duo there. That's George Kirby recently being calling up and had an amazing start. Marco Gonzalez, former veteran there, and they got their bullpen. They can be a team who can turn it around here. Like, it's just about whether they can contest with these teams. The Rangers are even in front of them at 22-23, 6.5 games back. The Rangers have been doing all right. They're about where they usually are. Oakland Athletics, there's not too much to say for that team, unfortunately. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting. We're going to see if the Mariners can make this AL West a little more spicy, a little more thrilling, let's say. But the Angels and the Astros are definitely neck and neck with each other. The Angels are only 2.5 games back, and they've been playing really well so far. It's going to be this is a part of the division which you don't usually want to see too much, but that you don't usually see too much from, but you could definitely see this season. Now let's go on to the NL East, our favorite division, Jake. We have the Mets up right here. They're leading the division, the nasty, ugly Mets at 30-17. They've been doing really well.
That'll change.
Wow.
I have faith.
I hope.
I mean, I would love to say the same, and of course not to cut you off here, Sam. But I think that, it might just be the additions that are clouding me, the new management. But I have a bad feeling that this Mets team is different with what they have. I mean, yes, I all with you guys. I'd love a Mets collapse at some point. Would be such a joy with how they've started. But I think with the pitching that they have out, their offense is deeper than it has been in the past, and they're putting together some nice stretches of baseball that, as much as I hate to say it, they're getting it done.
I mean, even though Jacob deGrom is out right now, you still have really good pitchers. Chris Bassett, a veteran. Carlos Carrasco, who's a former All-Star. You have an All-Star in Taijuan Walker. Trevor Williams coming in from the Pirates there, a little help of it. You have Adam Ottavino and Seth Lugo, who have performed really well out of the bullpen. And when Diaz hasn't faltered too much in that closer spot, being able to throw high 99 fastballs, really good sliders. And their offense, too. I mean, Pete Alonso, you have Jeff McNeil, Francisco Lindor, again, leading that charge in that infield. And then the outfield, Dominic Smith has struggled a little bit, but Starling Marte has definitely been putting the bat to the ball as he usually does.
I mean, that's the goal of baseball, isn't it?
I mean, a little bit more than the average player, I would say. He's batting .275, which is pretty good for right now. Mark Canha added up there, helping out that batting .294 right now. I mean, the Mets have been performing really well, and that's why they're at the top of this division. If we're looking at the Braves, with a losing record, 22-25. In fact, the Mets are the only ones with a winning record in the NL East, which kind of says something about that division, unfortunately. You have the Phillies at 21-25, not too far behind. The Phillies, I mean, Jake, we could talk about them for a while, the struggles that they've had with the smaller successes as well. But, Jake, for the Phillies, what do you think what's got to change here for them?
I think that I think it starts with the manager, Joe Girardi, and I know that people say that it's only part of the problem, and I agree with that. And of course, it's part of the larger problem. Their defense has been bad, but I mean that was anticipated. You need to work around that. The bullpen got guys in there, signed guys in there to be better in that position, but they have underperformed at times. But I think it's been on the manager, Joe Girardi, and I think there needs to be a change there to turn this team around, some spark, something to change, and there's just no spark for this team, and I think that it falls on the shoulders of the manager.
And I think it's something with the offense too. Obviously, the bullpen's always been a problem, but the offense, I feel like there's some gaps within it. Rhys Hoskins is down in the 220s, which he's struggled, and you could see the frustration in some of the games where he's thrown a trash can in the dugout, and you could see the frustration. Obviously, Nick Castellanos. I want to see more power from Nick Castellanos, and I want to see more power from Alec Bohm. They're batting really well, average-wise, but they need to put the bat on the ball and they need to send it into the stands, or they need to get more extra base hits or something. Kyle Schwarber's batting 188 as I saw right now, which is not great. He's helping lead the team in home runs, but he's a guy that needs to be on base more, especially if they want to put him in that leadoff spot. It would be amazing if he was batting at least 240, 230, and he would still be a threat to just send a ball over the right field fence. Bryce Harper in that DH spot is, obviously with his ulnar collateral ligament tear in his elbow, that's pretty much all he could do is just bat right now, which is great. I know adding the DH was a perfect time for this, but I want him in the field. There's so many things we can go on with, but I want to keep this a little more shorter. We can talk about the Philly struggles another time. Continuing on, the Miami Marlins at 19-25, and the Washington Nationals struggling at 17-31, 13 and a half games back. The NL East, it's been rough here, except for the Mets, honestly. The Braves they have some really good pitching. Kyle Wright's been stepping up a little bit. Ronald Acuna Jr. is back after tearing his ACL, which is really nice. The addition of Matt Olson after Freddie Freeman left in free agency has been really, really good. I know Dansby Swanson's been struggling a little bit, but he's really good on the defensive side of the field. Austin Riley, a lot of those guys from that World Series team who are still there and still willing to help that Braves team. They could probably come in contention at some point, but with eight games back right now, it's looking a little dire. If we can move on now to the NL Central, we move on to the Milwaukee Brewers here, leading that. This one's a little more closer, at least for the top two teams. Kind of similar to the AL Central here, or to the AL West, excuse me. Milwaukee Brewers are up 29 wins and 18 losses, leading the charge here. St. Louis isn't too far behind with 26-20, only 2.5 games back. Both of these teams have really good, with the Milwaukee Brewers rotation and Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns. Out of the bullpen, you have Josh Hader. I know Freddie Peralta was recently injured, but he was a big part of that bullpen there. Christian Yelich, a couple other guys on that team doing really well. And then you get to the St. Louis Cardinals. How do I want to say this? They definitely have the opportunity to overtake this team at any point, especially with our offense. Yadier Molina, of course. Paul Goldschmidt, Albert Pujols batting out of the DH spot, coming back and making a good impact at 42 years of age. He's batting .219. But he's keeping the fans coming, and he's keeping them interested and alive as well. Tommy Edman taking it over. Paul DeJong went back to AAA after struggling. Tommy Edman has been able to fill out his role, batting .279. Nolan Gorman, a young rookie prospect coming up. Nolan Arenado, obviously making great defensive plays and batting fairly well as well. 9 home runs with a .271. Batting average. This team could definitely take over at any point.
Yeah, and I think, again, you look at both of these teams, of course, I think the Brewers have the edge in the pitching department, but the Cardinals' offense, as you mentioned, listing off the names, I thought at least of a few weeks ago, Nolan Arenado was the NL MVP with what he's been able to do. Of course, we all know what he does on the defensive side, but he's putting it together and having a very good year this year with the Cardinals, even better than last year. And him and Goldschmidt has been phenomenal and carrying that offense when guys like Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson, who have been productive in previous years, have struggled and also gotten hurt in O'Neill's case. So the offense has kept it together. Still a bit skeptical of that starting pitching, but Adam Wainwright seems to be holding it together. That bullpen is strong, and I think it's going to be another battle to the end between these two teams, similar to the other Central, AL Central. Seems like both of these are going to come down to a two-horse race, at least it looks to this point.
If we look at some of the other teams, they have not been performing well not really. The Chicago Cubs are 9.5 games back at 18-26. The same with the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Cincinnati Reds, I mean, they've won 4 in a row recently, but 16-30, 12.5 games back to start the start of the season is. And I mean, I'm looking at this roster, and I don't really recognize too many names. I mean, you had Hunter Green throw like a no-hitter, and
They lost. Yeah,
they lost
yeah.
1-0 to the Pirates. He did have 5 walks, and walks will kill you in games. But for him to throw a no-hitter and to lose to the Pirates, who have been awful, it's mind-blowing. It's something that you don't see a lot in baseball.
That's actually, you kind of have to try to be that bad, don't you? I mean like,
you would
how
think
do you pitch a no-hitter and still lose?
Walks kill, and
Yeah,
with
walks
5
do
of
kill.
them-
Walks and
Walks kill.
errors, yeah.
walks and errors, and with 5 walks, that'll do it. That'll definitely do it for you. But they do have some hope. Joey Votto, obviously being 38, he has been performed very. Oh, I was gonna say they had some hope, but Joey Votto has been performing very badly with a 162 average and 99 at bats.
False hope.
False hope. But I mean, Tyler Stevenson, a young catching rookie, 308 average with 4 home runs, 24 RBIs. I mean, and they have a pretty decent prospect pool as well. I know Ellie De Los Santos is another big prospect who is working his way through the minors. A couple other guys who are pretty good, but yeah, it's a Kyle Farmer here batting .254. It's going to be an interesting ride for the Reds to see if they're going to be able to turn it around in the near future, because they probably had one of the worst starts in the MLB that I've seen that in a while. And we're going to close it up with the NL West here. Now this is going to be an interesting one, because I feel like the NL West in the past couple years has been really nice to watch. We have the
Best division in baseball, I think.
I would say so. I'd say so myself. You're gonna have, and not all the teams, like even like you look at the Colorado Rockies. We'll start with them in the bottom. They're 21-25. They're 10.5. I mean, they're 10.5 games back. But I mean, it's not terrible to start off with, and they can easily pull that around. They're not really that bad of a team, I don't think. Even with Chris Bryant's obviously had some injury stuff there, but I feel like that's not too bad to start the season, especially in this division. The Los Angeles Dodgers at 31-14 is a great start. I mean, with with that rotation, Clayton Kershaw.
Can I just ask a quick question? I don't want to open a can of worms, and we don't have to discuss this if you don't want to. But what's with Trevor Bauer? I mean, like,
oh no, that's a whole storyline. That's not good.
I know it's a story. I know it's just like I know
banned from the MLB
the
for 2 years, Jake.
I think it's 2 years.
So, yeah.
But
He's
like
banned from the MLB,
They
for
extended
2
the
years.
lead, like the lead.
he's going to fight for that and stuff. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, he appealed it, yeah.
I mean, but yeah, you can at least bring it up and at least be like, still imagine if that didn't happen for this
Yeah.
team that's already the best in
That's already
baseball.
stacked.
Here's the thing.
That's
Yeah,
already
here's the thing.
stacked.
They're
I
paying
mean,
him. Yeah.
Watching Trevor Bauer pitch in the majors for especially the Dodgers, but also pitch on the side on different YouTube channels. Beside his personality, beside him as a person, his pitching is nightmare. Like, he throws gas and he throws hard. So, to an already stacked Dodgers, I think that if this whole scenario wouldn't even happened, I think that would just push them even further in the ranks.
My point exactly, Peter. Right on the money.
Yeah, right
That's
on the
your
money
man.
is right. It would be that rotation, like even as it is right now, is pretty scary. Add Trevor Bauer to that, and it's unfathomable. That would probably be like no doubt the best rotation in baseball right now. But unfortunately, baseball has a way of the culture of baseball has a way of making certain things happen for a reason, and obviously that was something that happened with Trevor Bauer that needed to be addressed and is being handled accordingly. Other than that, you have the offense. Adding Freddie Freeman was very huge for that. Adding him to that first base spot. That moved Max Muncy to second base, which, as we saw as Philly fans, and I knew coming into the season would be kind of a difficulty for the Dodgers, as he's not the best defensive second baseman, but he would be pretty. But obviously, with the bat, he's pretty good. Justin Turner, Will Smith, Cody Bellinger. You could go on. They could go to the World Series. I think this team's going to go to the World Series.
I'm right there with you, Sam. Right there.
I guess we'll have to
I think
see,
they're going to the World Series. If we look at the other teams, though, the Padres, 29-16, only two games back. I mean, adding Mike Clevenger coming back after injuries. Fernando Tatis has been dealing with some injuries, of course, but they've been still doing pretty well. The Giants, obviously, we saw them go on a tear last season when they kind of came out of nowhere. 24-21, 7 games back. That's not. They're not doing too bad right now. They're definitely a team that could kind of come back and take a charge there. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 23-24, especially when they were in the gutter last season. They're starting off fairly strong for this division. I would love to see how this division goes, and I'm going to be very interested to watch it throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure, Sam, and we'll keep an eye on the entire league moving forward. It's been a great start to the Major League Baseball season. The NFL draft has come and it has gone. Of course, you know our last episode giving our predictions for the first 10 teams and our own personal picks. Justin, how did the group fare, and what are our assessments of these teams?
Well, Jacob, I'm glad you asked that question. As you know, I was doing that just before we got on here, so if you'd like me to read those results, I can do that for you just fine.
Hey, we'd love to know. The audience.
Can I make a prediction?
Would love to know.
Can I make a prediction?
You can make a prediction, Pete. Go ahead.
My guess, between this group right here, minus Sam because he wasn't able to join us, my prediction for the most correct was Nathan, second, Justin, third, Jacob, me last.
All right. Well,
Wow.
Let's read
That's
it
my
off
prediction.
then.
Yeah, I wish
Okay.
I could predict, but oh well.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, I already
The
know.
other two know. So, Jacob, Nate, Joey, and our special guest last time all had a big fat 0.
Really?
And then,
Donuts, man.
yep, 0 correct.
Really?
Peter, you were in second
Oh
place
my
with
God.
1 correct.
Oh, let's go!
Do you know what pick it was?
He has no
He
clue.
don't have a
No
clue.
clue.
No, wait.
He has no clue.
It was the 10th overall pick. You selected Garrett Wilson going to the
Oh,
Jets. And then myself and Cam were in first place with 2. We got the Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson picks correct.
You know, what's interesting about that though? How many of us were on there? Like 9? 8 of us were on that podcast episode?
Yeah, I think 8.
8 of us. And amongst 8 of us, with 8 different lists of people, 8 different possibilities, we still, the top of us only got 2 right. That just tells you and shows you how crazy the NFL draft can be and how incredibly fast teams can change their minds and how the effect of one player being picked by another team or a team before another team could change the whole scenario of how the draft works.
All right, well then, let's talk about how some of these teams did. I think it's going to be tough not to mention the teams that had 2 draft picks in the top 10. I'm going to start off with the New York Jets. Of course, they picked in the first round 3 times, picking Sauce Gardner with their 4th pick, Garrett Wilson with their 10th, and Jermaine Johnson II with their 26th pick. They also had a pick in the 2nd where they picked Breece Hall. In the 3rd, they picked Jeremy Ruckert. And in the 4th round, they picked Max Mitchell and Michael Clemens. So I think that obviously the draft for them went super well. They got 2 of the best picks that they could have gotten in those respective positions with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. That's going to not only help their offense, but their defense too. Zach Wilson's going to have an extra target, and their defense, they're going to be putting a lot more pressure on the quarterback to make good decisions now that they have an extra guy in the backfield.
It'll be interesting to see what the Jets can do with this, with Sauce Gardner especially, and with Garrett Wilson, like you said, it does give Zach Wilson another target, but also the Jets in the offseason picked up C.J. Uzomah from the Cincinnati Bengals, who, as we know, is a very good, elusive tight end. So now I think that you provide Zach Wilson with your first good weapon, which was Elijah Moore last season, and then you added Garrett Wilson and C.J. Uzomah to that offense. I'm not saying the Jets are going to have a miracle year and turn around like a snap of a finger, but what I'm saying is that they definitely are putting the building blocks in place that they need to grow as a team.
What I'm hearing, Peter, is Jets, Jets. Might, again, like you said, might not be this year, but the Jets on the rise.
They are.
It's going to take a lot for them to get the division.
But it starts with these kind of drafts. So you get those 3 talents in the first round, fixes the edge, fixes the corner, and gets you a wide receiver. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
And I don't think you can undersell getting Jermaine Johnson. I think he fell in the draft, and getting him at, what was it, 26, 27?
Yeah, 26.
I mean, that's great. Like, not only do you get the best cornerback and one of the best receivers, you can leave it up for debate, but you also get one of the best edge rushers. So, I mean, I think they did
He was
execute the
a
draft
steal
perfectly.
for where he fell. He was really a steal for where he fell.
Yeah, just great draft all around for them.
Also, we can't go without saying the Giants, too. I mean, they also had 2 picks in the first round. They picked Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal in their first round. And they had a lot more picks, so I'm not gonna read all of their picks, but they had a fantastic draft as well. Getting somebody to really plug in that hole there in the O-line, and also somebody to puts pressure on the quarterbacks, because really that was one of their major problems last season was not having any pressure at all.
It'll be interesting. I'm hoping that with the addition of Evan Neal, of course you're not going to fix your whole O-line with one guy, but hopefully he can give Saquon some more room to run and prove that Saquon can actually be a versatile running back, because he hasn't been able to prove that over the last few years in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think definitely, in addition to that, being able to pass protect for Daniel Jones, giving him time in the pocket, and of course going back to Thibodeau, I thought he could have gone number 1 as well. You had a lot of those guys in the mix. I think you got a guy who can dominate the defensive line and be a game breaker that they really need on that defensive side.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm gonna call it now. Thibodeau for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
Hey,
I
I can see it. I can see it.
I could see.
I could see it.
I love the way he plays. Obviously, I watched him play at Oregon, and I believe in him. And they really executed well in their draft as well, the Giants.
All right, of course, then we have to talk about the team that really needed a good draft, the Chiefs, coming in there, getting rid of their best player, arguably, in Tyreek Hill. So their draft was obviously one of big importance, and I'd say that they didn't do a bad job. They were able to select Trent McDuffie, the cornerback out of Washington, and that's just right there. That's a huge pick for them, because they also lost Tyrann Mathieu as well at the safety position. So they just needed somebody to plug in those holes at secondary. And then, of course, they also have Sky Moore, the receiver, in the second round out of Western Michigan. That's just, those are the big picks for them. That's going to really help them move forward next season with kind of just, an infusion of youth, hopefully get past Tyreek Hill. And I think that their offense will probably take a step backwards looking at what we're seeing, but I'm hoping that their defense might be able to take a step forward, and maybe they'll be a more balanced team.
Here's the thing. You kind of took the words out of my mouth with Trent McDuffie and losing Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu is a very good defensive player. There's no doubt about it. And as a rookie, it's kind of course, it's going to be difficult to fill the shoes that the Chiefs lost there. But when you're talking losing Tyreek, and I mean, they did pick up a decent wide receiver, no one, and arguably there's only, maybe with the exception of the DK Metcalf speed, no one is a better speed runner than Tyreek Hill. You lost a massive, impactful player on your offense by losing Tyreek Hill. You lost a guy bursting off the line, losing defenders left and right. And also, you are now forcing more defenses to say, okay, I can double guard Travis Kelce now. I can double guard Travis Kelce, limit Patrick Mahomes' second favorite target. So now I'm forcing Patrick to throw to a rookie who's still learning the ropes, and or I think Pringle.
They got Juju.
And Juju. Hopefully, if he stays healthy, which
Nico Hardman, I think, still there as well.
Yeah, Hardman is what I mean. Hardman. I mean, you're forcing Patrick to throw to lesser known people because he doesn't know Juju as well, and Harmon, I think this is his second year on the Chiefs.
Second or third,
So,
yeah, I think.
Second or third. So he's still learning those guys, and with this new draft of the rookie, it's going to be harder, like Justin said, for this Chiefs offense to be as impactful as they have been over the last how many years.
Yeah, but I think there's also a counterpoint to that, and I think you are on the money there, where there is going to be a change, there is going to be an adjustment period for them. But I think if any team is going to do it and be able to add a rookie like Sky Moore on the offense and be able to implement these young defensive pieces, it is going to be the Chiefs, with how they're coached, with how they ran. Again, one of the at least best in terms of the talent they have, the coaches that they have. So I think that those guys are going to plug and play nicely. You can have Sky Moore kind of learn in the slot. He's not going to be demanded a ton right off the get-go. You can have McDuffie in there on the corner side, on the defensive side, a guy they haven't had really a shutdown corner even when they won the Super Bowl. So that's another element that he adds. So I think it's a home run draft for the Chiefs.
And if we think about it, that was the Chiefs' big lack last year, was their defense. Their defense was letting up a lot of points in the secondary. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu had a decent season, but it's only one man. One man can't run a side of the football. So definitely Trent McDuffie is a big help to that defense. But I think that you're right with the Chiefs, the way that the coaching staff there. I mean, we know as Philly fans, that's just the best team to need a rebuild phase, maybe for a season or two, and then be right back where they were last 2 seasons. I think that it's going to be adjustment for all players, though, because Patrick is used to having a deep man who has hands and speed. Now, Juju has speed, but it's not Tyreek's speed, and if he gets injured, and which he has commonly gotten injured midway to the beginning of the season, you're at a kind of a disadvantage there. So it'll be interesting to see what the Chiefs do.
Just to add this real quick, I mean, we knew once they traded away Tyreek Hill that obviously next season was going to be different from the last few years for them. You're losing, like you said, arguably the best receiver in the NFL, but I think basically what it comes down to this draft is, did they address their needs? Yeah, they did. And as you've said, addressing those needs is what they needed to do, and they were able to do that. And I think if anybody can, get these young players up to speed, and if any team can really, I wouldn't call this a rebuild, they're still got most of their main parts, but build up these young players and fill these positions. I think the Chiefs can do it, and I think they're going to be still, right there. I don't know if they'll win the division, as we discussed, but I think they're still going to be right there in playoff contention. So, yeah, they had a good draft.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, of course. But I also want to mention a team that is very close to us guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it all comes down to one name for this draft. That's going to be their first round selection, 20th overall pick, Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pittsburgh, obviously. And that's obviously, it's going to ride on him. This entire draft class for the Steelers is going to ride on Kenny Pickett's shoulders. Does he turn out to be good? Is it this year that he takes over? Next year? Is Trubisky going to be the quarterback come September? These are the questions that we need to see answered. And it's all going to ride on, whether he's the answer or not for this Steelers team. But for right now, I can say that I think that they addressed the issues that they needed to address, and I think that if all goes well, the Steelers could be in 5 or 6 years right back into the playoffs every single year again.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Kenny Pickett, you still had pretty much all quarterback positions open at that point, and it's tough. Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis both have their huge upsides. I think if I was the GM of the Steelers, I would have chosen Malik Willis over Kenny Pickett. But I think that everyone has something to prove when it comes to the NFL. I think that college football is so much different than the NFL football, with how much you're able to bring to the table after you've gotten off-season training. You've gotten advice from your veterans. You've gotten all this information from people. See, the disadvantage of college is maybe the oldest guy on the team is 5 years in as a redshirt, right? But with NFL teams, you have guys who've been there 10 or more years even, who have had experience, who could give advice to these rookies. I think that addressing the Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, who will start, who will not, I think to get the team up and running, to get Kenny light experience. I think we're going to see like more like a Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance kind of situation where Kenny starts few and far here or there in the middle of the season, depending on the team's record. But I think we see a Mitch Trubisky start for the Steelers. I do not see Mitch Trubisky being the answer for the Steelers. Obviously, why I think they drafted Kenny Pickett in the first place. But if not this year, after the second half, definitely next year, I think we'll see a Kenny Pickett start in the Steelers.
Yeah, I think it was, they went with the storyline. They went with the guy with Pitt. Could, as you mentioned, Peter, could have gone in the Malik Willis direction. But I think he's going to pan out. I think this is a good pick for Pittsburgh. I think he's going to be the cornerstone for that offense for years to come. I know Justin mentioned 5 or 6 years off from, being in that playoff, conversation. Could be sooner. I think, they're that quarterback away. It seemed like they had a lot of other things go right for them. Just the quarterback play from Roethlisberger wasn't there. But I think I'm in agreement with Peter. I think they start with Trubisky and have Pickett learn. But I wouldn't be surprised 3-4 weeks in if Pickett is in there and they just want to, depending on how things go, and just put him in there and see what they have.
That's kind of when I brought up the Garoppolo-Lance situation. Because they brought in Lance, I think 4th week or 5th week of last season, just to say, here's some field experience, let's see what you do with it. And he did all right. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from the guy, but, they still went with Garoppolo throughout the season. They had Lance in there a few games. So I think that's how it's going to be for the Steelers, especially with Kenny Pickett being the new guy and Mitch Trubisky being a veteran, having the veteran kind of show the ropes, giving the new guy some playing time, some field experience, and then making that ultimate decision either after the bye week or next season.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that point. Going back to their overall draft, Kenny Pickett, I think that most people knew going in that he was the most likely pick for the Steelers if he was still there. Obviously, he was. I don't feel like they necessarily addressed all areas, though. I still feel like their O-line is very weak, which is why, I'm going to go along more Peter's lines. They don't, necessarily upgrade that side of their game. I don't think throwing Kenny Pickett in there anytime soon is really going to help him in his development into the NFL game. So I don't think this year or even next year, I think Kenny Pickett, like you guys said, I think most likely next year will be his year. This year, him and Mitch Trubisky, we'll see. We'll see what trade-off. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think they need to address the O-line still, and we'll see. You got to remember, their division is tough. It is not an easy division, so this whole playoff talk, also depends on the other teams within their division.
You brought up a huge point with the O-line, just really quickly before we move on here. That O-line put a huge dent in Najee Harris's rookie year, who, as we know, is an extremely powerful running back, watching him play in college. This O-line, again, hadn't got many upgrades over the draft and over the offseason. My opinion is he has a bit of a better season, because, Big Ben is more known for throwing the ball and trying to be like, oh, I'm still how I was 13 years ago, when he really isn't. And not to take anything away from his incredible career, but I think still we might see some more action from Najee Harris, because Trubisky's not much of a runner himself, and we're still trying to get some learned behaviors from Pickett. So I think Najee will have some more handles with the ball, but I don't know if he's going to have any much better of a season this year as he did last year, because they didn't really address the O-line.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to confirm you guys, they didn't pick a single O-lineman in this draft, and that was a huge need for them. So
exactly.
Well, yeah, I want to stay in Pennsylvania for this one. Let's go over to the other side, though. The Philadelphia Eagles.
Stop talking for a second. Just stop talking for a second. Howie Roseman, you are a living legend. Last year, for all of our listeners, if you don't remember, I said before the draft day, Howie Roseman, please listen to me. Do not screw up this draft. Trade up, pick someone good, and then let's go from there. And he traded up, and he picked Devonta Smith. Again this year, if you listen to our draft episode, I said, Howie Roseman, don't screw this up. Do it again. Take my advice again, and don't screw this up. And what did he do? First of all, he traded up for the most recognizable thing. Traded for A.J. frickin' Brown, which is unbelievably a massive addition to this offense. Like, you cannot tell me in any way, shape, or form that Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert are not a triple threat nightmare for the NFC East opponents. You can't tell me, you cannot prove me wrong that Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown...
As you can see, I put my
Smith
mic down because I know
threats.
Peter was going to, talk for, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Can't tell me nothing.
He took over
You
my
can't
spot.
tell me nothing.
Oh, man. I guess the comment, Peter's excitement is overwhelming, as Nate and Justin were showing. But I just looking at, I think, of course, trading up for Jordan Davis, I think that's a good pick. Again, with Kyle Hamilton still on the board at that time, some Eagles fans wanted to go in that direction, especially with the questions at safety and in the secondary. I think Davis is a good pick to be able to learn and make an impact at the same time, with the aging defensive line that they have with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and those guys who are, still performing at a high level but getting up there in age. And then, as you mentioned, getting that trade with A.J. Brown and pairing him with Jalen Hurts is going to definitely improve the offense. But looking at the draft, being able to get Nakobe Dean, who, of course, there were a lot of questions going on during the draft about his health, being able to snag him in the third round for a team that hasn't had average linebacker play, to put it lightly, over the past how many years, and to be able to get a guy that can anchor the middle of that defense, I have to give props. It was a great draft.
You know what's great for this Eagles team now? Just overall, you picked up A.J. Brown, who's not a veteran because he's only played a few seasons, but he has had more experience than Devonta Smith, so he's going to be a mentor for Devonta Smith as a wide receiver. So you have mentorship now on the wide receiver core. You have mentorship on the D-line for Jordan Davis with Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, all those guys. And then in the backfield, we picked up James Bradbury, who's I think a decent pickup, and you picked up, I forget the guy from the Panthers we picked up, Hassan Reddick.
I know they picked up Kazia White from the Chargers linebacker.
Yeah,
Hassan Reddick, yes.
So those two guys, Hassan Reddick, the guy from the Chargers, and James Bradbury, are all going to be able to help Nakobe Dean play in that backer part of the backfield of the defense as well. So we have younger guys on the Eagles now who all have all-around mentorship. I mean, Darius Slay, for Pete's sake. I mean, you have everybody who can look up to at least somebody who's had more experience than them to get advice. And I think that Eagles win the NFC East.
You mean the NFC
The
least?
Cowboys.
Oh wow!
Cowboys
Turn
are
that
dog
from a
water.
draft recap to a division prediction. Only
Hey,
Peter,
no.
only Peter can find a way to do that.
Carson Wentz is back in the NFC East. He's going to be throwing more passes to the Eagles than ever before. The Giants still need to rebuild, so we don't even need to worry about them. And the Dallas Cowboys, they don't have Randy Gregory. They don't have Amari Cooper. I mean, they're basically screwed. So Eagles win the NFC East pretty easily.
The guy that wanted to shorten the sections is over here giving
Only
a
on
division
Peter
prediction.
time.
Nate, I assume you're in the same boat as me. You don't want to talk about the Eagles anymore. So let's just
I was gonna say, please take it away.
Justin, I can't handle these bipolar Eagles fans. 1 minute,
Oh,
Howie
actually.
Roseman is public enemy number one. Now
Oh,
they heap him praise. They
Hey,
love
that's
him. They can't get enough of
Philadelphia
him.
fans.
You know?
That's Philadelphia fans for
Welcome to
you.
Philadelphia.
You guys are always on
No,
mute about talking
that's
too much.
Eagles.
Not talking
I guess
too
all
much.
Philly fans. Eagles fans.
Yeah.
go,
Welcome to
boy.
Philly.
All right, let's move on before this podcast evolves any further. Let's go on to the Detroit Lions, the last team I
Oh,
wanted
boy.
to highlight
My
this
God.
this draft. Yeah.
That's what I
Jacob-
wanted to talk about, Justin.
Dan Campbell's team.
Great franchise right here. But yeah, just like Jacob mentioned earlier, how the Pittsburgh Steelers went with the storyline, so did the Detroit Lions with their first selection, picking Aiden Hutchinson, who's a Detroit native. They also selected Jameson Williams, a wide receiver, as well to help them out. This group that the Lions got, it was pretty good for them, and now hopefully Jared Goff can do a little better this season with some added support, and maybe their defense can be a little better too.
It'll be interesting. I think that after the very difficult season that they had last year, and difficult is putting it lightly, I think that the only way you could go from here is up. Dan Campbell will have another chance. I don't know if Jared Goff's your answer or not. I really don't think so, but we'll have to see how... I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, really good pickup. There's no doubt about it. But I think that the only way to fully encapsulate the Lions draft is they added people that they needed to add, because any help is help for them, and the only way to go is up for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know that I know our special guest Owen thought that they should get a quarterback, and I think that's a very good discussion. Who is it? Maybe they again give. I think the philosophy is giving Goff another year, especially with the loaded QB draft that is coming next year. Now with a good rookie wide receiver in the fold, and really there were guys like Aquinas St. Brown who really came on late for them offensively. I think it's two good picks. Hutchinson's going to be a guy that they need on defense, and Williams, I think, is going to, even though he's still battling back from that, I think it was torn ACL, MCL at the end of last season, I think he's still going to at least make some impact. And again, evaluation time at QB and really still getting all those young guys experience.
Yeah, I mean, as these guys said already, two good picks. As Peter said, any help is really help for the Detroit Lions at this point. You know, I like Dan Campbell. I like what he's, trying to accomplish there. And like Jake said, I think, this season, you take a look at Goff, you see what happens, but if you're a Lions fan, you're not upset if you have another 3-13 season, because you look at this upcoming quarterback draft class, as Jake said, and, you've got to be like, I wouldn't mind that, because who wouldn't?
Bryce Young?
Bryce Young? CJ Stroud? Yeah. I mean, look, it's stacked. It's just, I think they're looking towards the future, and I think these two picks are just building towards that future vision that ultimately they hope to have.
Nate, the last point I want to make about this, the Detroit Lions, is you made a remark about Dan Campbell. I love his passion for his team. He had the worst team in the NFL last year, and that man put every ounce of sweat, blood, and tears. Second worst. He put every ounce of sweat, blood, and tears into that team, and he never gave up, no matter what point in the season that they were at, and he showed them that. He showed them he still believed in them. He showed them he still had passion for them, and I think that's huge for any team, to have a coach, no matter how good or bad you are, to have that amount of passion for the game and for your players and their growth is incredible. So massive props to Dan Campbell for being the kind of coach he is, because you don't see that very often in coaches.
Yeah, the NFL offseason still going on. OTAs starting up soon. We'll definitely keep an eye on how these rookies do and how these teams do in general. Playoffs are going on. Playoffs are wrapping up for some of the winter sports. The NBA, the NHL coming to a climax. Guys, NBA, NHL, which one you want to start with here? Got two going on.
Let's start with the less painful NHL.
NHL. We've got the Western Conference setting up here, Edmonton and Colorado, and then you've got the Lightning facing off. You still got the Rangers and Canes going at it. Nate, Peter, anyone else want to hop in here? What are your thoughts NHL playoffs so far?
I don't know. Like I said in the beginning of the season of the podcast, I guess you can call it, I'm still getting into hockey and basketball, so I don't know very much about all these teams. What I will say, though, is I've been watching the Rangers a lot because my dad is a Rangers fan. They're holding on, man. I mean, there's some close games, and there's some, moments where you're, grabbing on the edge of your seat. Are they going to hold it? Are they going to be able to come back from it? And they're still holding on, so I give them credit for that.
We love the Rangers because they took out the Penguins. That's for you, Joe. That's for you,
Joe.
Joey, whoever he is.
Whatever Joe said, Joe. Couldn't be here tonight. Working hard.
This is for him.
But guess what? Y'all blew a 3-1 lead in the first round. I don't want to hear it, man.
Oh, he's got to say the injuries. He's going to say the injuries.
It's so funny you mentioned that.
He's got so many other excuses, believe you me.
It's so funny you mentioned that because the last remark I was going to make was, well, at least they beat the Penguins.
NHL playoffs, I've been watching a lot of them over the course of these past few weeks since school's been out. And it's been, quite incredible to see, especially Tampa Bay, who I personally, I didn't expect them to come this far, but they were able to get past Toronto in 7. Heartbreak for Leafs fans once again, losing the first round of the playoffs in Game 7 again for the 5th year running. It's crazy, honestly. But you should have known. Once it went to a Game 7, it was over for him. But just to see them, and then they go and they sweep the Florida Panthers. Like
That was unexpected.
Yeah. I truly would have thought, being the Battle of Florida, two rival teams, that there would have been more passion, more fight in there. But Florida they looked terrible. That's all I mean, they couldn't score on the power play. Their offense was pretty abysmal for the whole series. And it doesn't help that Tampa Bay is getting Vasilevsky. I mean, he's playing incredible.
I think he's the best goaltender in the league still. Yeah, he's playing like it.
He's playing like the best goalie in the playoffs. He's got a .932 save percentage right now. I mean, it's incredible what he's doing in the playoffs. He's 8-3. He's played in all their games, and he's 8-3. So that tells you all you need to know. He's been incredible. Kucherov, 15 points. Hedman, 10 points. Great defenseman. They still have their key players from their past 2 championships. As a reminder, they are the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. They're looking for a three-peat, and I hate to say it, but at this point...
Could you see it?
I could see it.
I could.
That'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool to have a 3-in-a-row run. We'll have to see what happens, Yeah, hockey's a very unpredictable sport. Like all sports, when it comes to playoff time, anything can happen.
Exactly. And, it remains to be seen who they will play in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right now, the Rangers up 4-2 in Game 6 in the third.
4-2. Yeah, I thought that Carolina would be able to see off the Rangers in 5 or 6 games, but as we can see, this is going Game 7. I mean, that's all I have to say. I think it looks like Game 7. I mean, so...
Yeah, and you look...
No, Nate. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, no, I was just... You turn to the other side. You look at the top, at least, of the Eastern. If we're going to go all the way around here, Eastern to the Western Conference, you look at, of course, we kind of hinted at that Penguins-Rangers series. You thought, took a lot out of the Rangers, going the distance with them, kind of the Hurricanes' domination in the first round. A battle. The Rangers have come back, Hurricanes punched him in the mouth, hockey terms here, fighting in the way, and 6 games, and as we mentioned, 5-2 Rangers. Now it looks like it's going to a Game 7.
And I will mention this: Hurricanes have not lost at home yet in these playoffs. So, Game 7 is in Carolina. If that's any indication, it looks like we could have a Tampa Bay-Carolina matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals, which would be my personal preference as a Flyers fan.
Is that Draymond? Draymond calling out the matchup like he did in the NBA? Not to segue just yet, but Rangers, listen to Nate. Take that as motivation.
Yeah, they can. But I'm going Carolina. Screw the Rangers. That's all I got to say. Get out.
Speaking of Game 7s, and anything can happen in the playoffs, how about the Celtics and the Heat moving over to basketball?
So we'll go back to those NHL final Stanley Cup predictions, but I think I guess we could switch gears here. Game 7, Heat Celtics. Guys, we got the Warriors waiting for them. Who do you think takes this one? Heat Celtics, and I guess can evaluation about the playoffs so far.
The Miami Heat will beat the Boston Celtics in Game 7.
I don't know. This has been a really grueling series. I mean, obviously Jimmy Butler. I was seeing something that he didn't have a 40-point scoring game like the entire regular season. He gets to the playoffs and he had 5 or 6 of them. I mean, he's been blowing up right now. Obviously, he's had some help from Victor Oladipo and Bam Adebayo. Kyle Lowry's been shooting the ball pretty well. But I mean, if you look at the Celtics team is pretty stacked too. Jason Tatum obviously tying the tie. Oh my god, I love seeing that meme. It's so funny. But Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart has been stepping up a little bit. Al Horford had some pretty nice games in the playoffs here too. This is a tough one, but I'm gonna go with the Miami Heat. I'm gonna give it to Jimmy Buckets here. Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry. I think they're gonna take this one, and I think they're gonna take it to the finals, and they're gonna give the Warriors a good fight. We'll see about that. But for right now, I think the Heat are going to move on to the finals.
Peter, Sam, that is where you are wrong. Celtics in 7. I think that they're going to bounce back. I think every time that they've gotten, punched in the mouth a little bit. Tough loss at home. Could have closed it out at home. They've responded. I think think they can get it done on the road. They've won games on the road before.
In Miami. Ooh, that's a tough
Yeah,
one.
see,
Jake.
Come on,
It's Miami.
It's
Sam.
not Boston.
Miami.
It's Boston.
Yeah.
It's not Boston. It's not as tough to play as in Boston. I'll give the Heat credit for winning in Boston in that tough environment. Boston, don't tell me the Miami environment is what's gonna hold them back.
But
But I
Here's
mean,
the thing.
a game 7 in Miami.
Yeah. I was gonna say off of Sam's thing, it might be the Heat, it may be whoever. No matter what, in a neck and neck run like this through any playoffs, if you're at home, your crowd is definitely showing up for Game 7, and they're bringing everything they've got to hype up that home team. So sure, Miami may not be Boston, but I for sure think that in any sport, home field advantage in playoffs is a massive morale booster.
It
I'm not
definitely
saying
helps.
it's not. I'm not saying it doesn't help. I'm just comparing apples to apples here,
And
Peter.
Boston's blown Miami out, and they're building already in this series. I mean, I'm honestly, I gotta say, Jake, you know,
Come on, Nate. Come on, man.
I'm with you, man. I think the Celtics they've bounced back this whole series. I don't see why they don't in this Game 7. I love Jimmy Butler, and I think the only way the Heat win is if he has another 45, 47 point game like he did.
Well, it's happened. I mean,
I know it's happened,
It's
Sam,
happened
but
multiple times.
He also needs he needs his shooters to step up as well.
And Bam Adebayo to step up.
Yeah, Bam. You know, Bam. We'll see. I'm going with the Celtics. And Sam, I'm going to be honest with you. I want the Heat to win. I'm not lying. I love Jimmy Butler. I got to pick the Celtics. That's where my heart's telling me. That's what I'm thinking. You know.
I think this.
When the episode outs, we have 2 versus 2. The winner will be decided, so we can harp on whoever in the next episode.
I can break a tie if you need me.
Yeah.
Go for it, Justin.
Sure.
Justin, who do you think's gonna win? You know nothing. So you
Oh
don't
my
know.
God! Oh jeez.
This is national championship vibes all over again.
I'm gonna go with the Celtics. I know Boston fans can be pretty rowdy, so yeah, let's go with the Celtics.
It's not in Boston. It's in
I know,
Miami.
but like they'll
It's
travel.
in Miami.
They'll travel.
They'll travel. I guess.
Yeah, and I guess just wrapping up, we'll go back to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just any I guess predictions for the Stanley Cup. I know that kind of deciding game will pair up the Warriors with someone in the NBA. We got who are you thinking, Nate, in the Stanley Cup
Well,
playoffs?
as you said earlier, Edmonton versus Colorado in the Western Conference, that is already confirmed. Edmonton has had the best offense in the playoffs, scored the most goals with 53 in this playoffs so far. They have the 2 best players left in the playoffs. McDavid and Draisaitl. Is it his year? I don't know, because I feel like the Avs are the better overall team. But I'm going to go McDavid makes it to a cup. I'm going with Edmonton, honestly. I think that their offense, best left, I think that they can win this Western Conference Finals.
Knowing the little I know about hockey, I'd say Edmonton and Tampa Bay go at it.
Yeah, Eastern Conference, like we said, we don't know who's going to be playing Tampa Bay. But based on the fact that Tampa Bay, they got a sweep and they're waiting, they're resting up, I think Tampa Bay makes it again, unfortunately.
Yeah. Edmonton, Tampa Bay, Stanley. I can see it.
I could see it. Edmonton, Tampa Bay. I could also see Colorado. I think that Edmonton-Colorado series could be a 6 or 7 game series. I don't think it's going to be easy for either team.
I'm going to go with Colorado. McKinnon and the company will get it done. I say Colorado and Tampa Bay. But again, as you said, Nate, it's going to go to 7.
Just my quick point on McKinnon, he hasn't really stepped up yet in these playoffs. He's got 13 points, 8 goals, but he's had his moments, but he's still got to take the extra step. Maybe he does against Edmonton. Remains to be seen.
Rises to the challenge against McDavid and Draisaitl. That will do it for this week's episode of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. And thank you, Anchor, for sponsoring this episode. Again, for future episodes of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast, YouTube, and also on Spotify. Tune in there. And once again, thank you all for listening.